The story is very obviously fictional and fantastic in nature. Any resemblance to existing individuals, organizations, or blah 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 is coincidence. George-sama, please look. They're so cute, look! Shannon found a pair of hammerhead sharks swimming playfully in the tank. And looked as excited as a grade schooler seeing an aquarium for the first time. Yeah, they really are cute. Almost makes me want to eat them. I'd feel sorry for them. Did you know? I hear the Japanese are the only people in the world who go to aquariums and say how delicious everything looks. Is that so? I'm sure even Americans and Italians would want to eat these. Those clothes look good on you. Really? Shannon clutched at her chest with both hands in embarrassment. She apparently felt like she was being made fun of for wearing these clothes she wasn't used to. Though George's face didn't show it, he'd actually said something so completely unexpected that it surprised even him. And he was as embarrassed as Shannon on the inside. However, when he saw how embarrassed Shannon was, he started to imagine he was teasing a girl he liked. And instead of embarrassment, ticklish amusement welled up in him. No, he wasn't just imagining it. He really was teasing the girl he liked. Before now, he wouldn't have expected to hear a line like that anywhere these days, not even in a manga or something. In fact, if he'd seen another couple acting like this, his first instinct would be to start throwing rocks at them. But even if someone were to start throwing rocks at us now, I'm sure they'd be no different from confetti celebrating our relationship. Now, I can't even remember those lonely days, when I felt jealous of couples who were completely oblivious to their surroundings. To use an old-fashioned phrase, these really are rose-colored days I'm living in. I'm so entranced that I barely notice that massive tank in the world's largest aquarium anymore. Instead, all I see are the expressions flitting across Shannon's face as she plays with the fish. It's amazing, isn't it? It's my first time seeing a tank large enough for a whale to swim in. I heard this tank is the biggest selling point here, and that it's the biggest tank in the world. Is that so? That's amazing. It's really wonderful. It doesn't even look like a tank at all, more like they sliced off a part of the sea with a knife and brought it here. And you're right. This really is a little sea. Despite its size, I hadn't thought of the tank as anything more than a tank. That's why I found her metaphor so interesting. No matter how far humans broaden their experiences, they always end up viewing the world through the lens of their own values. Maybe that's why it's so interesting to interact with people who have different worldviews. I voiced my thoughts on this. She responded. True, this may not be the real sea. But if those little guys swimming in there believe it's the sea, then that's what it is. Even though they're inside a finite tank? The sea is finite too. And then again, even if the sea were infinite, how much could we cover in our whole lives? I'm sure it'd be only a minuscule fraction of the sea. You're right. It's ironic, isn't it? Even though the whole world is so vast, most of us humans live our lives without ever leaving our own country. If the inhabitants of a place believe they're living in a complete world, then even the bottom of a narrow well can be a wonderful world, an entire ocean. At least to the frogs that live there. Shannon, who spent her days as a servant on a small island 10 kilometers in circumference called Rockinjima, said that with a smile. Oh, whoops, that was Shannon. Whoops. Turn of the Golden Witch. Shiumiya Battler. Ushimiya George, Ushimiya Jessica, Ushimiya Maya. Ushimiya Kinzo, Ushimiya Kraus, Ushimiya Eva, Ushimiya Natsuhi, Ushimiya Hideyoshi. Ushimiya Rudolph, Ushimiya Rosa, Ushimiya Kirie. Anjo Teramusa, Shannon, Goda Toshiro, Ronoe Genji, Kanan, Kumasawa Chio. Beatrice. Umineko no Nakukoro ni. After we finished walking through the whole aquarium, we had a small late afternoon lunch at a restaurant with a nice view. The word buffet has the word to make many boys' heart leap. Has the power to make any boy's heart leap. I was like that myself once. But with Shanna beside me, this buffet felt different. I couldn't shamefully pile on only the things I liked. I was, how should I put it, worried about my appearance and chose a menu suited for a snob. Toast, salad, and coffee. If I'd been myself, I would have made a pile of oily stuff like yakisoba, mashed potatoes, gratin, and so on. Shannon, is that going to be enough for you? If it is, then I guess we men are animals with really bad fuel efficiency. That's not what I... On Shannon's tray, there was only tea and salad. Maybe the mere fact that I thought she was a whole plate short proved I was thinking with a man's stomach. Actually, I should be asking you the same thing. Don't you think men should eat a little bit more than that? I imagine you normally eat much more for lunch, right? Oh, right. Dang. I come to think of it, you already know how much I eat normally because of meals I've had at the head family household. That's right. So I was worried you might have an upset stomach today. Shannon was kind enough to guess that I wasn't feeling well. Looks like my stupid attempt to show off made her worry. And apparently my stomach wasn't going to let me show off any longer. Okay, I'll confess. I was just trying to look cool. I held back just because I was with a girl. I thought so. Considering how much you eat during lunch at the family conferences, I thought this wasn't nearly enough. Please, don't be so reserved, and feel free to choose another dish. It's not fair for only me to be embarrassed. What about you, Shannon? How will you be able to keep up with the Ushimiya family workload on such a sparse diet? Oh. Shannon fell silent and blushed bright red. Apparently, I wasn't the only one showing off. When I realized that my embarrassment disappeared completely. Oh, so that's not enough for you either, is it? Yeah, you usually eat a bit more than this for lunch. A woman's stomach is made of magic, so this is enough. Oh. So, we've been showing off to each other. Let's not hold back anymore, shall we? I smiled to show that I wouldn't make fun of her anymore and rose from my seat. After finally coming to Okinawa, it'd be a waste if we didn't eat some bitter melon. I'll go get some fried bitter melon or something. Shannon, come with me. Come on. Yes. To anyone watching us, we might seem like an incredibly charming and embarrassing couple. It's only after becoming a couple that you realize. To us, this exchange of words is everything, our entire world. That's why no matter how much everyone else stares at us with blank expressions, we never notice. Indeed, at this age, I finally understand the feelings of couples who want to endlessly flirt without any regard for their surroundings. After I returned with a plate piled up with fried food, Shannon arrived with a pretty cake. While laughing at our fake stoicism, we resumed our lunch. Even though it's a restaurant with a view of the sea, it's so cloudy. Luckily, our window seats gave us a view of seaside scenery so grandiose that it extended even beyond our field of vision. However, because of the cloudy sky, we were only seeing a fraction of its usual beauty. That's right. If it were clear, we'd undoubtedly see a deep blue sea. Yep. I'll bet you're already used to the sea around Rakanjima, but the deep blue of the sea here would surely have been a sight to see. It's a real shame. Oh, but no matter how blue the sea is at work, it might as well be gray to me. But I'm not working today, so, Apparently Shannon was doing her best to say an embarrassing line. But I didn't let her get off easy. So close. If only you'd said, when watching the sea alone with you, George-sama, it looks deep blue no matter how gray it is. I'd have given you full marks and a prize. I'm sorry. Want to hear what the prize was? If you don't mind telling me. No, I won't tell you. That's not fair. When I was in elementary school, I was always the kid who got bullied. When everyone teased me, I grew nervous and speechless to the delight of the bullies. Back then, I wondered why everyone teased me. But now, teasing Shannon like this, I understand why. This is so much fun. I can play with her emotions however I please, and I can have them all to myself. Oh. Don't know how I feel about that. Right now, I can't think of any greater pleasure. That's why I have to go easy on her. It's not as though I want to make her feel embarrassed and upset. So I decided to be nice and change the subject. That's not to be too obstinate. When you finish your lunch, do you want to take a walk on the beach? Maybe the clouds will clear up and we'll get a beautiful view of the sea. That's right. I want to go see it. Yeah, let's do it. But that cake really does look delicious. Maybe I'll go get one of those too. You mustn't. If you eat cake after eating so much, you'll get fat. It looks like Hideyoshi-sama's blood is pretty thick in you, George-sama, so you'll get chubby if you don't take care. Shannon, you won't stop liking me if I get fat, will you? After all, I wouldn't stop liking you if you got fat. Yes. Power couple. I didn't mean it that way. If you don't take good care of your body, it'll be bad for your health. What is this noise? Is ow? I don't know how to say that. We're just gonna ow. My mother warns me all the time too. I wonder if I'll have to take up Tai Chi, Quan, or something like she does and get some exercise. When going on a diet, it's better to start by rethinking your eating habits rather than just exercising all the time. Apparently, the exercise only helps if you're eating well first. In other words, you're telling me to hold off on the cake, huh? Then I guess I'll just have to gaze at you while you stuff your cheeks with it, Shannon. A whole cake is probably too much, but maybe just half of one would be okay. Here, it's really delicious. Shannon cut her own cake and tried to move half to my dessert plate. I had no doubt that she wanted to share the delicious cake's flavor with me. However, I meanly pulled my plate away from her. She blinked in surprise. She couldn't seem to figure out if I was refusing the cake or not. So I winked, opened my mouth, and said, ah. So that's what you really wanted. You're such a pampered child, George-sama. No. Okay, no. This is not... I'd prefer if we didn't do this, but I guess this is where we're at now. Okay, say, The partly embarrassed, partly exasperated face, Shannon offered the cake to me with a fork. Oh. It tasted like a cheap chocolate cake you might find anywhere. And yet, it was exceptional. Because eating cake in such an embarrassing way, as if we were a couple of perfect fools, had been my dream for many years. It made this cake's flavor heavenly. The earth is destined to end. I wouldn't have any regrets if it happened right now. It was such a moment of bliss. After that, we gathered shells, ran from waves, and enjoyed each other's company while walking along the beach. In the end, the clouds never parted. However, we both believed that the sea reflected in our eyes with a deep blue. Somehow, I'm so happy, and that it scares me. You do say that from time to time. Well, what is it you're afraid of? I'm a servant of the Ushiyamiya family. For someone like me to be walking like this with a member of the family, it just felt like it was too much for me. I'm also surprised. I didn't just meet you yesterday or today, Shanan-chan. We've known each other for years now. However, we can only meet during those family meetings that only happen a few times a year. Back then, I couldn't even imagine having the sort of relationship where I could spend time with you like this. It was the same for you too, right? I did imagine it. No, I mean, maybe I should call it a kind of daydream. I did think about what it'd be like being in a relationship with you, a boy who is always so gentlemanly and considerate, though it was only ever a fantastic daydream. Then we must have your believing heart to thank for our relationship. The magic dwells in the power of love. So I'm sure that magic brought us together. You're right. I really do think it was magic. But, you know, that's not actually true. As you kept looking more and more beautiful every year, you became a larger and larger presence in my mind, too. If the same thing happened to you, then the fact that we're here today is simply an inevitable consequence, rather than something caused by magic or a miracle. No. A miracle did happen, George-sama. She stopped walking down the beach, gazing out beyond the sea. A miracle? No, it was magic. It happened. I was bewildered by that slightly mysterious phrase, which I sometimes heard her use. Magic, you say? Yes, magic. I doubt you'd believe me if I explained, so I won't. But this bit of magic definitely had the power to grant the miracle that brought us together. Are you talking about some kind of ritual? Yeah, you might call it something like that. Except that it really was magic, not just some ritual. Maybe it's all girls, not just Shannon, who tend to treat encounters as miracles or coincidences. For a man like me, an encounter with a girl is 70% hard work to try and make her like you, 20% courage, and 10% coincidence. The part that means everything to her is a much smaller factor in my mind. Maybe that way of thinking itself is calculating and typical of men. But if I said that out loud, it might dissolve all kinds of magic. To my mind, there were lots of coincidences, compromises, and expended effort on both sides before we gained the relationship we have today. At the culmination of all that, we get to spend this joyful time together. And if she wants to call that magic, I've got no objections to her choice of words. So I'll stand up for that magic. You're right. If the same fate were repeated 100 times, maybe you and I could get into a relationship like this only one of those times. In the other instances, even though we'd be aware of each other, maybe we would have only maintained a reserved relationship after all this time. From the perspective of those other me's and you's, you and I are undoubtedly in a miraculous relationship right now. That's not what I meant. It really was magic. No matter how often you tell men something like this, they'll never believe it. Kanan didn't believe me at all either. I believe you. I'd hate for the magic to fade away because I didn't believe in it. George-sama. In a small voice, I apologized for saying something that trivialized her magic. Shannon seemed to be glad to hear me say that. After all, if two people believe in the magic of love, it becomes eternal. Oh, that's right. I was wondering if you'd be willing to agree to a little whim of mine. Yes? What is it? You call me George-sama, right? It's not that I dislike it, but would you consider not calling me that anymore? Of course, you have to keep up your appearance with the Yoshimiya family, so I wouldn't force you to do so during your everyday routine on Rokkenjima. But when we're alone, I'd rather you didn't call me that. Yeah, let's make that a rule. A rule? What would happen if I violated that rule? Maybe we should have some kind of punishment game if you break the rule. Yes, what should it be? Wanna hear? Oh my gosh, this is Higurashi. We have punishment games. No, I don't want to hear. I'll have to think about what it should be. Okay. George-san? Yeah. I love the way that sounds. I'm so happy, Shannon. I also have another name. It's Sayo. I see. The rule's gotta be fair after all. I'll follow it too, and from now on, I'll call you Sayo. Okay? Sayo? Yes. Held her shoulder and drew her close. When I forcefully pulled her delicate body towards me, she dove into my chest like a doll. This is so creepy! I don't like this. I don't like this description. I really... I don't know if I like the relationship in the first episode, but now I'm starting to maybe not like it so much. As I held her head in my arms, we both looked at the horizon. What a deep blue sea. So happy we got to look at the sea, just the two of us. Me too. I'm so glad to have a chance to look at this deep blue sea with you. As we gazed at the gray sea and the light rain began to sprinkle down, we kept listening to each other's heartbeats. I mean, I think their relationship is supposed to be cute, but that scene did not bring a lot of confidence for me. Sound of waves floats into my ears. No, it's the sound of an enraged sea. My body, bathed in painfully cold splashes, does not allow me to forget. It won't let me forget the memories of the day my old fate was broken and smashed. Oh wait, I think this is Shannon. Sorry. Once, tomorrow's we're literally looking into a mirror. We're literally like looking into a mirror. All I ever saw there was the person I already was. Tomorrow was absolutely no different from today. That was my old fate. But then, for the first time, I saw a different fate beyond the mirror. The witch whispers to me. She tempts me to take a bite out of the fruit of knowledge. She torments me, saying I'll be furniture as long as I stay in God's paradise. So I decided to choose the path of knowing love, and tried to become a person. Those days were like sweet honey, but at the time, I didn't realize that they'd be the start of a new kind of suffering. Arrived at a small island on a motorboat I've only just learned how to use. No, this can hardly be called a small island. It's little more than just a rock jutting out of the water. On this rock is a torii and a small shrine. It was probably built to worship the guardian deity of Rokkenjima. Even though I don't know exactly what it signifies, I know it has to be something holy. Even in a place like this, I've got to take just one more look around to see if there's anyone who might get mad at me for coming. I see nothing but the stormy ocean, Nijima looming in the distance, and the waves breaking against Rokkenjima's steep cliffside. I ready myself. timidly approach the small shrine and take the mirror that lies there as an offering. The mirror looks old, cloudy, and dirty. That would probably make any normal mirror seem horribly cheap. However, since the mirror has been placed in this small shrine, its appearance seems to give some sort of divine quality to it. And there's one thing I can tell. This is no simple mirror. It may seem like an old, battered mirror to a non-believer like myself, but it has a great significance. Is it really okay to break this after being captivated by honeyed words? No, this isn't really a mirror. This is the life I couldn't escape until today, my fate. I'll break it. I'll smash it, and seize the life that lies beyond this mirror. If I don't smash it, my life will be a pair of facing mirrors forever. Nothing will ever change in the slightest. The witch whispers to me. She tempts me to take a bite out of the fruit of knowledge. Or maybe I've already tasted of that fruit. After all, I've already experienced those maddening emotions. Just as Adam and Eve felt compelled to pluck their fig leaves, I can no longer go on without breaking this mirror. I've struggled with conflicting emotions for so many days before this moment. Inside my heart, the virtuous part of me kept on fighting the part that sides with the witch. And now, here I am. Did the part of me that's here right now win or lose? There's only one thing I know. To obtain something, you must be ready to lose something. Cowards who don't risk anything, who have never tried to change anything, will never be given the key that opens the path to a new future. That key is already in my hands. And that key is to break this. To smash it. Is there any other effort I can make as furniture imprisoned in Rokujima? No. This is the only way for me. Come, have courage. I'll free myself from being mere furniture. And by accepting a new kind of suffering, I'll become human. This is surely a small, yet large trial I must impose on myself. Come on. Smash it. I'll smash it to pieces. The eternally unchanging fate that imprisons me. I raise the mirror high. Think back on the days of conflict that came before. And finishing my reflections in the blink of an eye, I throw it down. The thunder roars, crying out against me for my outrageous act. Truly is the hatred of angels trying to banish me from eternal paradise. I look down at the mirror tumbling at my feet, broken in two equal parts. And after making sure I've accomplished my task, I scream up at the raging skies. I've kept my promise. Now, it's your turn to keep yours, right? Thunder roars once more. I've already been banished from paradise, so I'll have to struggle on my own if I want to live. The witch told me. That is the single element of this world. To lose it means losing the world. Like how a canteen with a hole in the bottom can't be filled, no matter how much water you pump into it. I've kept my promise. Now, it's your turn to keep yours. Please, grant my wish. Beatrice-sama! Welcome to Rockin' I didn't know they played the opening every episode. That's interesting. I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense. My mind wandered. Back to the days when I could barely imagine the happiness I have now. I was a middle schooler at the time. Who is speaking? It's a girl. I don't know. I don't know who this is. Is it Jessica? Okay, we're just gonna go with it. I was in middle school at the time, a normal girl who thought about love as much as you'd expect of someone at that age. But in truth, it was wrong of me to have that dream. After all. It's shut on! Dang it! After all, I am furniture. Furniture is nothing more than a tool, not a human. As a person less than human, simply receiving an education was an enormous blessing. So in reality, even thinking about falling in love was more than I deserved. The Ushirimiya family conference was a customary event held every October, but relatives sometimes visited at other times. Of course, they didn't come just to drink tea. On this day, Eva's family was visiting the head family on Rokkenshima. 3 members of Krause's family and the 3 members of Eva's family had gathered in the parlor, and were having a friendly chat about recent events. Genji had supposedly told Kinzo of Eva's family arrival, but he still hadn't come down. He was probably immersed in his research and couldn't spare the time. As often happens, the others waited patiently for their fickle father to arrive. Oh, how promising. Make sure you work hard under your father, building the skills you'll need if you want to lend him a hand soon. Thank you very much. I've learned countless precious things from the many experienced people father has introduced me to. And these were all things I could never have learned in school. When you're in school, it's not math and language you're learning. What they're really teaching you is the right outlook and attitude for learning more. Once you've got that base, you can finally start a long period of study that'll last your entire life. People who don't get this end up spending their whole lives as fools who never learn. Just getting full marks in math and language won't do you any good at your company. Indeed, that is exactly right. Hideyoshi-san, your style of education never fails to impress. George isn't quite a full man yet. He'd better always keep that in mind and embrace his studies. Stop it, dear. George is always giving it his all. Right? Truly admirable. I wish our Jessica would learn from him. Sheesh. Are you still holding a grudge about that test score? I'm studying for tests the best I can. At least then, don't say it here. Pissing me off. Once people started praising George for his diligence, the conversation usually turned to Jessica, who hated studying. Jessica made an openly displeased face, as though she'd known this would happen. I'm assuming Sean is still narrating? I could be wrong, but whatever. My. Schoolwork aside, it seems Jessica had better learn to choose her words a little more gracefully. How improper for the single daughter who bears the weight of the Ushirimiya family crest. Come now, she's quite appealing in her own way, isn't she? Times change. The time when we had to act all modest to entertain men ended long ago. That's right. I knew you'd understand, Aunt Eva. My headache is truly trying today. Are you okay? And Natsuhi, you're looking a bit pale. Thank you, I am fine. Still, time really has flown. It feels like just yesterday when you would run around half naked by the beach and come back soaked. Wasn't your Jessica-chan the same? And now she's a lady who fusses over how to put on makeup. I see you focused on your eyebrows. You look really cute today. Thank you very much. No one noticed, so I was a bit unsure of myself. A full smile rose to Jessica's face as the results of her own studies were finally appreciated. Eva smiled back in the same way. Then she turned that smile towards Natsuhi. Come on, Natsuhi-ne-san. You must take notice of small changes in your own child. Or Jessica-chan. You probably wanted your mother to notice first, didn't you? No problem, no problem. That person never notices anyway. Anything. Jessica, I cannot condone you speaking of your mother in such a fashion. Apologize. Later, I will speak to you at length about your language. If you don't want kids getting in your way, just say so. I'm gonna take a step outside. It's getting stuffy in here. Jessica! Jessica was still at the age where tests and entrance exams are pretty nerve-wracking. Recently, she clashed often with her mother, who was enthusiastic about her education. Excuse me. Jessica, who was trying to leave the parlor in a bad mood, bumped into Shannon. Okay, so Shannon wasn't narrating. I'm sorry. I don't think it matters, but whatever. Who was pushing a serving cart filled with tea. Shannon, no need to worry about my tea. I'm just gonna go wander around the garden. Milady. Shannon, the tea is getting cold. Serve it quickly. My apologies. Shannon hadn't actually done anything wrong, but Natsuhi, who felt like something shameful to herself had been shown, lashed out at her emotionally. This was something that often happened in the Yoshimiya family. But it seems Shannon wasn't strong-willed enough to accept it and to just accept it and moved on. She shrank back and cowered while serving the tea. She had the unfortunate habit of making more mistakes when she cowered. Her pitiful appearance ruined the peaceful atmosphere that had existed a moment before. It wasn't really Shannon's fault, but she thought she might be the source and felt a pressure on her chest. Her shaking fingers made the utensils clang. You couldn't have called it graceful, not even just to be polite. The more pitiful she appeared, the greater the silence grew. The more irritated Natsuhi looked, and the more Shannon cowered. Shannon's thin neck felt like it was being suffocated and choked by the reaper known as stress. At that time, George spoke brightly, blowing away the stiff atmosphere. This smells nice. What kind of black tea is it? This is... No, don't say it. I'll guess. It's a very distinctive smell, so I probably know it. Is it Earl Grey? I think it probably is. Yeah, I'll bet it's Earl Grey. When you get back to the kitchen, check the tin. Oh, George-kun, you know a lot about black tea, don't you? One of the company presidents who's looked after me was very knowledgeable about black tea. I managed to pick up a little while listening to him discuss the subject. Oh yeah, the president of Okanogi Foods. Yep, that sort of trivia is that guy's specialty. Names of black teas often refer to the places they're made, right? So, did this come from a place with that name? From what I've heard, there was a person called Earl Grey in England long ago, and it was named after him. Furthermore, this distinctive smell doesn't come from tea leaves, but from a fruit called a bergamot, which is a relative of the mandarin orange. Is that so? I never knew that. Learning things like that makes tea taste all the more delicious. Same thing goes for alcohol and cigarettes. Luxury items have a taste of romance. Knowing stuff like this deepens the taste. It's the same as reading the list of benefits on a medicine bottle. Natsuine-san, you should try reading the explanation on your favorite headache medicine someday. That's a wonderful idea. Try it tonight. Yes, I'll do so. Shannon-chan, try opening that pot. You should find some dried bergamot mixed in with the tea leaves. Ah, yes. It's in there. There's something like dried orange peels mixed in. Yes, that's probably bergamot. The main ingredient in Earl Grey's scent. The scent is vivid, so you might expect the taste to be intense, but it's still gentle and easy to drink. If you make it with milk, the scent should become more mild, which works great. If there's anything left in the pot after you've poured it for everyone, you really should try drinking it with milk. Ah, yes. Thank you very much. George gave her a small wink. Shannon finally realized that George had kind-heartedly swept aside the tense atmosphere in the room. And now he had done it for the sake of Shannon herself, a cowering servant. The Ushimiya family did not pamper their servants. Any display of awkwardness would be harshly punished. So it was rare for them to be given a helping hand like this. Thanks to George's kindness, Shannon managed to regain control of herself and finish serving tea without further incident. As long as she stayed calm, she could carry out her work elegantly and flawlessly. By the time the black tea was laid out on the table and its elegant scent filled the room, the atmosphere had completely returned to its former peaceful mood, and everyone praised George's knowledge. Shannon wanted to thank him for saving her, but it didn't look like she would get the chance. So she decided to at least thank him inside her heart, praying to God that George would hear it as she pushed the serving cart away. George Nissan always lends a helping hand at times like that. By changing the topic or something. Shannon and Jessica were in the rose garden. Jessica still hadn't returned to the parlor after getting into a fight with her mother and was nonchalantly killing time here. When I think back on it, I get the feeling this wasn't the first time he's helped me like that. Whenever I made a careless mistake and George was around, I'm pretty sure he'd always naturally smooth things over and restore harmony. Maybe it wasn't something as direct as picking up a fork that had been dropped. But that was his way of caring. Even servants have their pride. They want to fix their own mistakes by themselves. And if a guest lends them a hand, they'll lose face. He's really good at reading between the lines when stuff like that happens. Well, I guess it's kind of like an art to him. That guy's more of a show-off than he looks. That's not true. I think he's a really wonderful person. Shannon, you haven't fallen in love with George Nissan, have you? For once, Shannon disagreed with Jessica in a slightly forceful tone, which immediately caught Jessica's attention. No, that's not it, I think. Come to think of it, I've hardly heard any stories about George Nissan in love. I think I remember hearing him say that family-oriented girls were his type, didn't I? Sweet, that fits you perfectly, Shannon. It does? How could... I am not, suitable for such a thing. Not suitable? Like hell you aren't. You've known him so long, you're practically a childhood friend. They say that when you start from a natural relationship where you don't think of the other as a member of the opposite sex, things start to move pretty fast once you finally start thinking about it. There's no doubt. Jessica loved teen magazines with this sort of story, and she was always getting excited about talking about that kind of thing with her friends. She was very quick to pick up on love stories like this. So this wasn't the first time Shannon had been exposed to this kind of story. But this certainly was the first time she'd started thinking of George as a member of the opposite sex. She was furniture, while George was an honored guest and a member of the Ushimiya family. Until now, she'd assumed that even imagining any deeper relationship with him would be impermissible. So she hadn't thought of it. Since it was someone else's problem, Jessica poked fun at it, seeming to enjoy herself. It was all Shannon could do to hide her blushing cheeks. If George were to appear at a time like that, she'd have no chance of keeping her cool. They saw George come out from the entrance hall of the mansion. It looked like he'd seen them as well. He headed over, waving his hand. Shannon had to frantically try and regain her ordinary composure before George reached them. Her grandfather finally came down, and now they're having an adult discussion, so they chased me out. Escaping then was the right choice. It'd be better to kiss the angel of death than look at grandfather's face. You shouldn't speak that way. But you know, I think Grandfather might think of us as angels of death. After all, we came here to talk about borrowing money for business reasons. That's right, this wasn't the customary annual October family conference. Eva's family had visited to apply for a business loan from the head family. Kinzo had vast resources, and he lent those out to those children. Of course, they didn't borrow money because they were living in poverty. How would they expand their businesses with the vast sums they wanted to borrow? How much interest would be attached, and how long would they have to repay it? This wasn't the sort of loan designed for the poor. It was a loan designed for those who were on the offensive. Kinzo strictly judged whether it would be worth lending out his fortune, and afterwards he strictly oversaw its use. So Rokkenjima would sometimes play host to the spectacle. Relatives visited and described their businesses to Kinzo. To the parents, these meetings burdened them with the strain of having to move a vast amount of money. But to Jessica, who lived on this isolated island called Rokkenjima, it was a precious opportunity to meet up with her cousins. So being able to talk with the occasional guests such as George like this immediately cured the bad mood she'd gotten from that fight with her mother. And my family's totally stingy too. And they've probably got money to spare, so why not lend it out graciously? Dad and Grandfather will probably get pig-headed and act all important. It's natural to be prudent when lending money. Of course, my father will use what he borrows to expand his business, and he came with a plan that promises a solid probability of repayment. Everything else is left up to the presentation. But I really wish I could watch from the corner and learn. Mother chased me out. I'm a little let down. It seems the master still tends to scold Cross-sama and Eva-sama as if they were kids. I'm sure she didn't want to let her son see that. As Shannon hung her head, she thought back on a scene similar to those who worked in the mansion. Even Kraus, who acted haughtily towards his siblings, was still treated like a child by Kinzo. Shannon herself had often seen Kinzo slap Kraus and tell him to sit up straight. It was probably very embarrassing to be coerced like that at his age. Taking care to avoid being present at times like that was one of the important responsibilities held by the servants working here. However, the fact that Shannon had ended up witnessing such a scene meant that she'd messed up at least once in the past. Yes, I'd imagine so. Maybe figuring that out and staying away is part of a child's duty. Ah, that aside, the flowers in the garden look truly splendid this year. George stretched as he said that, and he smoothly changed the subject away from one that was a little gloomy. This time, Shannon noticed it too. This person, George, could sensitively figure out the situation, and always change the subject to something harmonious out of kindness. It was so smooth that Shannon hadn't noticed it until today. Today, Shannon really had to admire the way George did that. Of the boys close to Shannon's age that she'd known, nearly all had been classmates during her period of mandatory education. But they had all been young, and none had possessed the composure George had. Mere moments ago, he'd been just another guest. But right now, she couldn't help but think of him as something more. However, such thoughts were mere distractions from her work as a servant. Shannon tried to chase them away with a small shake of her head. What's up? No, it's nothing. Shall I make some tea? I will prepare some more of that Earl Grey. So you remember the name of that tea. I'm glad. Thank you for your concern back then. Shannon was finally able to put her gratitude into words. If you wrote it out, it wouldn't be very long. But Shannon had needed a little spark of courage to say it out loud. But George played dumb. What do you mean? I don't remember doing anything I should be thanked for. He seemed to be playing the gentleman in his own way, letting her know he wasn't doing anything out of a desire for gratitude. George's response seemed to be more or less exactly what Jessica had predicted. She couldn't help but burst out laughing. See? Isn't he a bit of a show-off at times like this? No. That's not... Jessica poked fun at Shannon as the latter remained silent, red-faced. George didn't know the details, but he naturally joined in, laughing the same way. The three of them lazily walked around the garden, catching up on recent events. George, as the oldest cousin, talked about his life experiences. Jessica talked about recent life on Rokkenjima, and Shannon talked about her recent work. They kept going on about these trivial things. Even when Shannon heard the others talk about deeply interesting things, she never felt any particular interest in the actual content of their stories. She was nothing more than a servant. She had no intention of delving into her master's lives. She simply wanted them to enjoy their time speaking with her, and would only pretend to listen intently and nod at the right moments. But for some reason, the things George talked about today seemed to catch her interest powerfully. Even things she'd normally ignore felt like they contained a trace of kindness behind the words. For some reason, she wanted to know more things about George, no matter how trivial. So, she stared fixedly at him. She thought that as far as looks went, the Tsushimiya George was probably about average and didn't stick out in any particular way. But he was diligent, serious, and had a deep prudence which allowed him to understand people's hearts and show concern. But she never noticed these things before now. She may not have met him many times, but she'd known his face for many years. Even so, she hadn't noticed once until now. Shannon, embarrassed by her own obliviousness, blushed. George, perhaps thinking that Shannon would listen intently to his stories, kept talking happily in length about things he'd done and seen. But Jessica didn't miss that slight change in Shannon. So, she decided she'd change the conversation to the topic she was sure Shannon was most interested in. Oh yeah, come to think of it, George Nissan, have you finally gotten a girlfriend or what? Where did that come from? Normally that reaction should have been answer enough. But for some reason, as she was now, Shannon wouldn't be able to understand it unless he said it clearly. George-sama is very nice, so I'm sure, he's very popular. Well, quit it, Shannon. Isn't cornering him like that actually pretty mean? I wasn't trying to be mean. Well, I'm flattered that you have that mistaken impression of me, but unfortunately, I still haven't had a relationship with any particular girl. After all, my looks are below average, as you can see, and I can't speak tactfully in a way that can entertain a girl. I don't think that's true. And I think a man's charm is decided by something that can't be measured by his appearance. That's why, I think you might be considered a very attractive man, George-sama. Shannon was being uncharacteristically verbose. She hardly ever spoke at such length. George seemed fairly pleased to hear someone applaud his charm like this, but he was just a little surprised at this sudden high praise. Jessica, now sure her guess was spot on, appeared to be hardly holding back laughter. Thank you, Shannon-chan. I hope I do bump into a girl who's generous enough to feel attracted to me before too long. Yes, I'm sure you'll run into one. I'm sure there's at least one. No, a lot of girls who will recognize your real charm. She probably wanted to say that there was at least one girl very close to him. Shannon avoided saying that much, drawing a final line as a servant. Really? I guess I'm kind of embarrassed. You've probably never been praised as heavily by a girl before. George's face turned just as bright red as Shannon's. As she watched the two of them, Jessica giggled sadistically. Well, I'm sure you'll eventually bump into a wonderful partner, George Nissan. But I doubt you'll be able to properly escort your partner as you are now, right? It looks like you're diligent, but you've completely abandoned your study of that. Sorry about that. I'll start studying that bit by bit. And how do you plan to do that all by yourself? Are you gonna watch romance movies or something? Or are you gonna learn from Uncle Hideyoshi? Well, you're acting pretty triumphant. Men are no match for girls when it comes to this sort of thing. Normally, when George and Jessica got together, their parents would say George is diligent and admirable, and Jessica is lazy and rude. So it's probably unbearable fun for Jessica to have their roles finally reversed. George realized this as well, so he resigned himself to being the one getting teased for once. So, George Nissan, as long as you're okay with it, why not practice a bit with Shannon? It'll be your job to keep Shannon entertained all day long on a date. What do you think? What are you... Milady? When she heard Jessica's audacious plan, Shannon's face turned bright red with a poof, and a donut of smoke started to rise from her head. That's a very tempting plan, but I wouldn't want to burden Shannon-chan. It'd just end up wasting one of her precious days off, wouldn't it? I'd be butting in on that sacred time that she should be spending alone with somebody she really likes. I couldn't do something so boorish. I also, don't have a person I have feelings for or anything, so, there's there's no need to hold back for my sake. Chun's blood had all rushed to her head. It looked like even she didn't know what she was babbling about. Jessica, who knew how Shannon normally was, seemed to be finding this hilarious. She couldn't hide her cackling laughter anymore. Is that true? I can't believe a cute girl like you would be single, Shannon-chan. I am a servant, so, of course I don't have any relationships with boys, Which means that, if Shannon ever wants a chance at getting herself a wonderful guy, she needs practice with relationships too, right? So you both want the same thing. Sweet, that'll be perfect. Jessica irresponsibly cheered the two of them on. By now, even George was hanging his head and turning red. George, I've been calling to you for a while now. Didn't you hear me? When Eva appeared in what was already an embarrassing situation, both of them got even more flustered. Jessica watched and laughed loudly. Mother. Sorry, I was so engrossed in our conversation. I didn't notice. Oh, Eva-sama, you have my deepest apologies. It looks like you young kids are getting really fired up together. You're all about that age. Oh, I know how kids your age can talk about that sort of thing forever. Come on, you're still young yourself, Aunt Eva. Please tell us how you and Uncle Hideyoshi met. Oh my, there's no way I could say that. You all really are so young. So what is it, Mother? You called because you wanted something, right? Your father and the rest have finished talking. We're going to talk to Grandfather about you, so come on. About me? Well, what could that be? The same thing you were all talking about just now. You know what I mean, right? Oh, that. That isn't really something we need to talk to Grandfather about, right? What's going on? Oh wait, George Nissan, are you getting married? Congratulations! No. Didn't I just say I didn't have a particular woman I was interested in? That isn't something to brag about, is it? Good grief. Eva smiled bitterly, looking a little exasperated. Oh, I get it. George Nissan, it's one of those, right? In Omeai. Marriage meeting. A marriage meeting, you say? Well, yeah. Surely, as a man, George wanted to find a partner by himself and bring her home with him. Though it seemed he thought it was a bit pathetic to meet his partner for the first time in a marriage meeting arranged by his parents. Shouldn't marriage meetings be done at a more mature age? I still don't feel like I've become a full-fledged adult. Of course, we have no desire to rush into an immediate engagement or marriage, right? There's nothing wrong with deepening your friendship first, and then having her move to our family register after you've gotten older and settled down. Judging by Eva's forceful attitude and George's non-committal one, the others could catch a glimpse of the story behind this marriage meeting. They didn't know who George was supposed to be meeting, but it was surely someone who would profit Eva's family in a business sense. The very fact that they'd be satisfied with the mere engagement to deepen the relationship between the two families, rather than an immediate marriage, made it feel almost like a political maneuver. You see, marriage isn't something you should enter into only after you start liking someone. You marry first, and then you adjust. If you marry based purely on emotions, you'll end up regretting it. There's certainly nothing wrong with choosing a person with a secure background for your partner in life, and then developing your affection later. Aunt Eva, isn't that kind of rude to Uncle Hideyoshi? I love that man. I want to always be with him, and to live my life by his side. Eva-sama, that's wonderful. Truly splendid. Thank you. We built up those feelings while we were husband and wife, you see. And I believe that in the future, we will be much, much closer than we are now. I think that's what's best for a married couple. Still, I don't think you can use that to argue that it's okay to marry someone you don't even like. But it also doesn't mean that it's okay to marry anyone, as long as you like them. It only takes an instant to get married, but your life as a married couple will last a long, long time after that. So you should search with your prudence and avoid making decisions based on momentary emotions. Don't you think a matter like this would be better handled by us, rather than a person lacking in life experience such as yourself? That may be true, but I'm proud of you, my only son. You've grown magnificently, and I'm sure you'll do us proud no matter where you go. And now that Battler-kun has left the family register, you are father's only male grandchild carrying his blood. We must prudently choose a fitting partner for you. As everyone related to the Yoshimiya family knew, Eva adored George immensely. But that didn't mean she had pampered him. She had been strict with him and had raised him into a wonderful boy who wouldn't betray her expectations. That was why she treasured him so. Your partner certainly won't be selected based on your parents' profit and loss. I'll bring you a suitable and truly wonderful woman. At this moment, your immaturity might make this seem unpleasant to you. But if you're going to take my advice on anything, listen to me now. Have I ever failed to act in your best interest? No, you haven't. That's enough for now. So, let's go. We're keeping father waiting. Hurry to the mansion. Well, sorry, you two. See you later. George bowed to the two of them, and after bowing once more to Shannon, he dashed off to the mansion. I'll be going with him. Forgive me for interrupting such an entertaining conversation, Jessica-san. Shannon-chan. No. Please, don't worry about it. Come on, Shannon. Let's go. Yes. It's okay. I'm sure you'll meet someone wonderful soon too, Jessica-chan. A wonderful person suitable for you. So, if he's at the same level as me, you mean a guy with shit grades. That kind of pisses me off. And of course, you too, Shannon-chan. I'm sure that a wonderful man suitable for you will appear. Yes! Thank you very much. Eva giggled and smiled. She approached Shannon's ear with a hand over her mouth, as though she was trying to tell her secret. Huh? I'm sure you'll find a perfect match for a lowly servant like yourself. Have you forgotten to be grateful for your education? Know your place. That's not what I meant. George is the eldest grandson carrying father's blood. He's a person who may bear the burden of the Yoshimiya family someday in the future. To answer to that expectation, he has studied tirelessly, entered a wonderful college, and is getting wonderful grades. Did you really think you could snatch George away, you uneducated, incompetent, unqualified, uncultured servant? Those malicious words all poured into Shannon's ear without spilling a drop. To Shannon, it was like cold water was being poured in there. I didn't mean... This was all whispered to Shannon in secret, and with the same smile as before. Jessica, who could only see Eva's expression, didn't think it was anything other than Eva telling Shannon some embarrassing story about love. When their secret conversation ended, Eva patted Shannon's shoulders, as though she was urging her on. Don't worry. I'm sure you'll find a perfect match for a partner. Right? Okay, Jessica-chan. See you later. Yeah, see you later. And make sure you tell me about you and Uncle Hideyoshi next time. No way. Eva laughed loudly and headed back to the entrance hall. Behind Jessica, who was cheerfully waving her hand. Shannon reflected very, very deeply on those words of Eva's knowing her place. Of Eva's about knowing her place.